What's up, Ego Hackers? Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about subconscious developed men and how they are basically, in general, especially in their youth, cowards, and what we would call do-nothing men. And a lot of this has to do with them outsourcing judgment to the collective instead of thinking for themselves. Now, here's the thing though. The healthiest subconscious development, and quite frankly, the most masculine subconscious development, and like the best subconscious development, they have the octagram of subconscious developed perceiving male, also known as SDPM, right? And these are the SDSF, joy-oriented men. These are by far the best men, and also the most capable at what they do, which is sensing danger, working on building up rapport, reputation, status, and they take big responsibility in terms of how things look. Many of them are very accomplished artists and architects, and quite frankly, can create beautiful, beautiful things. And that's awesome. The problem is what do you do when you have society made up of a majority of those men? Because subconscious developed men, in general, just are not warriors. They're not really warriors. Even if they get put into a situation where they end up forced to become a warrior, what's going to happen is that over time, they'll actually turn into an unconscious developed man and never return to the sweet softness of a subconscious developed man. The thing is that statistically, subconscious developed men oftentimes are cowards. And it's because they have a lot of delusions that's kind of attached to them. That's the thing about being a UD man, because you're more invested in decision making instead of how things look. You walk around, you're making everyone uncomfortable. You walk around, being creepy. Subconscious developed men, you never have that issue. They don't really make anyone uncomfortable. Not really. They're not edgy. They're not creepy, basically. So, edginess is, an unconscious developed male trait. That's the edgy man, But, and those are exploders. But then you look at the exploder women. Exploder women are a little bit different because they're kind of more like professional. They have like a professional feel to them. But subconscious developed men, they have this problem where they outsource their decision making to others. And it's oftentimes because they're trying to run away from the responsibility of their decisions. And this is why they often rely on the majority instead of the minority. And they're not really oftentimes having the courage to be the minority, whereas the unconscious developed man definitely has the courage to be the minority. Using an example from war, okay? Using just a very easy example from war. The Battle of Thermopylae. King Leonidas, he had to convince a lot of men to basically be willing to throw their lives away and stand up to a 20,000 man horde of, a huge, huge Persian army that is trying to invade their land. And he gets them at a bottleneck in Thermopylae, and 300 Spartans hold back a 20,000 man army. Here's what's interesting. I bet those 300 men were unconscious developed. And that's a very good distinction, because the soldier ants, the 300 Spartans, they went out first. They end up sacrificing their lives, but it sent a message to the rest of the Greek world what was possible. and united everyone so that all the men who ended up playing it safe, all the subconscious developed men, would finally get on board, because, the idea of going to war is finally, how shall we say, popular. It's all about what's popular. That's what they care about, what's popular, to an annoying level. And that includes popular thought, popular ideas, whatever is popular. Unconscious developed men typically go in the direction of what is not popular, lacking in popularity, the alternative direction, versus the subconscious developed men. They want to side with the majority. They want to play it safe. And little do these people know that they are consistently creating echo chambers. They are extremely echo chambery. Yet, all the time, it's the subconscious developed men who are pointing fingers, especially at unconscious developed men, for having echo chambers. It's extremely common. And it's because the subconscious developed men, they, for some reason, have been conditioned into thinking that it's more manly to be all about, all about decision making, me, good, decisive decision makers. But they're just so bad at it. And when a subconscious developed man ends up forced with being a decision maker in his life, let's say, for example, he's SDUF, right? Which is the SDJM Octagram, right? That, too, is a big problem. Because what ends up happening is that they're all trying to be, judgmental and rely on their own judgment, rely on their own understanding. But the source of that understanding has nothing to do with critical thinking. It has everything to do with communalism. Communal thinking, also known as groupthink. What has already been established, what is already known. Some people, it's like, we have this thing called common sense, right? That's what these men are all about. SDUF men, they're all about common sense. I like to call common sense common ignorance. Because there's a phenomenon out there, I forget the label of it, but the phenomenon is that the more people believe an idea is true, the less likely it is to be true. Okay? Which is, it's because of groupthink. It's because of what subconscious developed judging men are all about. And it's very annoying. Like, consistently annoying. And they end up creating these echo chambers of delusion. I mean, these are the guys who will show up and act like a mob, and they'll only get involved if something is easy, not when something is hard. That's the problem. It's like Dumbledore saying, hey, a time is coming when people have to choose between doing what is right versus doing what is easy, okay? And that's what that is. That's what that means. And, that's a big problem. Subconscious development just really, really frustrate me. They really frustrate me. Like, I was at a bar one time, and my UD friends were there, but they were hosting a subconscious developed man. This guy, he's got hubris complex. And he's like this ENFP. And he's consistently, always, looking down on other people because he believes himself that much smarter, that much more intelligent, and He's not. He's weak. He doesn't know what he's talking about. The man is excellent in spotting danger. He's excellent at predicting danger. He's excellent at memory recall. And he's an excellent witness at being able to recall specific events and the details. That's what he does. The man makes an excellent scout or an excellent sentry. But he's not a warrior. He's not a warrior. You know, and he has this thing where he's like, hey, he doesn't like me. He does not like me at all. So I show up at this bar and he spots me. What does he do? He immediately stands up because he knows I'm coming back to those people. He knows this. Coming back to my friends. So he gets up out of his chair and he walks to the other side of the bar. And I'm like, what's going on? It's like, oh, you could just have my chair or whatever. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. Okay. I sit down and to all the guys, I'm like, what's that guy's problem? It's like he's scared of me. Well, he is scared of me. Because a little bit later, I start to hear about some backbiting. I start to hear about people talking shit, okay? And it's him talking shit about me behind my back. I've probably maybe had 4 conversations with this person ever. And each of those conversations, maybe 6, were hella shallow. So, and, it's like, it's just some stupid situation. But hey, he's got that hubris complex. He's got to look down on everyone else because he's so much smarter than everyone else. It's basically who he is. So, and then he's like talking so much mad shit about me behind my back. In fact, he actually was talking shit about me for like 3 weeks. And then I get to the point where I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation. Didn't have nothing. And then later, because it served his interest of making him look good and making him look strong, even though he's just nothing more than a fucking paper tiger, looking strong in front of everyone. He wants to look strong. And then he's like, oh, me and Chase, let's talk, whatever. And by then I'm just like, nope, you've had weeks to talk to me. Just get the hell out of my life. You're just a coward. And you knew that I wanted to talk to you. You knew that I was going to challenge you on talking shit. Whatever. But, he's got to be this conflict avoidant person. And then he's like, oh, you're a coward. And I'm like, okay, now you're projecting, dude. Because you don't want to talk to me. And I'm like, dude, you could have talked to me over the last 3 weeks of you talking shit about me behind my back. But you don't even have the guts to say that to my face, right? This is common with subconscious developed men. This is especially common with subconscious developed, unconscious focused men. These men have this consistent problem, okay, where they all believe that if they have a belief and they can get a group of other people to believe in that belief, that validates that belief and makes that belief, oh, maybe that belief is actually real. And this is literally the driving force behind mob mentality. Subconscious developed, unconscious focused men literally create mob mentality. If it ever serves their personal interest, they'll always do it. Because remember, they're only going to feel safe believing in an idea or accepting an idea when believing in an idea or accepting an idea, they'll only have that, right? As long as other people also believe in that idea or accept that idea. These men, in my opinion, are in general incapable of original thought. Now, they can have original artistic works. They can have original ideas from the perspective of what they're seeing. But in terms of being able to create insight, a big time insight where it's like, oh, that's how this works, or that's how this works. Instead of manipulating something that already pre-exists, they're not going to be original. They're not going to pull something out of the ether and make it come into existence. They have to find something that already exists and then manipulate it. It's kind of like this old joke story that my mother told me about when I was a child, right? My mother told me about this when I was a child. And that is when she's like, oh, there's a scientist who challenged God, and I'm a better creator than you. And God's like, okay, so what do you want to do about it? And the scientist is like, let's have a competition. And God's like, okay. And the scientist names time and place. God and the scientist show up at the time and place, and they're about to have a creation competition. And God's like, okay, so what are the rules? Scientists start listing out all the rules. And then the scientist's like, okay, so we're going to start now. And here, you grab some dirt over there, and I'm going to grab some dirt over here. Let's go, let's get started. And then God says to the scientist, get your own dirt. Which basically means that God created the dirt too. He made the dirt. So scientist is going to have to make his own dirt out of nothing. That's the whole point of the story. But that's basically what subconscious developed men are like at their worst. They're like this. They have this problem where they want to use something that pre-exists, thinking that they can make it better, instead of entirely originating something from start to finish. It's very frustrating. These are the men that rely on education institutions because, again, they're outsourcing their thinking outwards to everyone else. From the subconscious developed male perspective, everything is already known. So I just have to go to school, specialize in something because it's already known, and then just do rinse and repeat on that skill, on that thing, without even thinking about it. So that I get to shut my brain off, even if I'm working. This is how they act. And it's really frustrating. And it comes down to groupthink. You know, there's a group of subconscious developed guys. They had a little groupthink. And they told me that, no, we don't want you around. You're giving us a bad vibe. You creep us out too much. Okay. So then they invite this other guy instead of me into their group. And I thought to myself, give us Barabbas. So Barabbas joins their group. What does this guy do? Well, they later claimed that this guy committed hate crimes. They made that claim. You know, and he also is passing out, like, in my opinion, illegally handing out really offensive material. You know, even inciting other guys to give documentation, offensive documentation, to like a race-mixed couple, etc. And being like, hey, this is... And that led to the guys getting kicked out of the bar that they're at. You know, so we'll call him Barabbas. And Barabbas did this, you know. But what really bothers me, and hey, Barabbas, he don't like me either because, I'm married to a non-white woman, right? To be fair, me and marrying women, I rarely marry a woman of my own race. It's very rare. And so he's got a personal problem with me. about that. But what's very interesting is that this guy puts this group of dudes that I thought I was friends with, but apparently I'm not friends with them. He gets this group of dudes and ends up having this perspective. They end up having this perspective that, I'm no good for their group. But that guy, Mr. Hate Crime, is good for their group. Because, they get a good vibe from him or whatever. And that's the thing about subconscious developed men. They care so much and are so invested in how things look instead of how things are that they'll just, you don't pass the vibe check. But the actual criminal over here, he does pass the vibe check. And it's like, okay, glad I had nothing to do with you fucks. Get the hell out of my life. I'm not going to be in your life. I'm not going to be in your life whatsoever. You people are crazy. Here's another example of subconscious developed men with their stupid ass groupthink. I was in a situation one time where I saved somebody. I saved someone's life, right? But then people, subconscious developed men, due to groupthink, because of how things look instead of how things are, because they don't go to the effort of clarifying and truly investigating what happens. They just want to suit themselves with their own judgments. Just like the Apostle Paul said, where the time is coming in the end, towards the end of days, that people will gather up for themselves teachers to teach them what their ears want to hear. And they will abandon sound teaching in exchange for the things that suit their own desires. Welcome to subconscious developed men in general. Not all SD men are this way. Some of them grow out of it. Some of them mature out of it. Some of them realize that they have to humble themselves and ask clarifying questions, But anyway, that situation, I saved someone's life, but then, I get attacked because subconscious developed men assume that I was attacking this person, even though I saved them, right? Wow. It's just here's another example. I saved the life of a 2-year-old child that was choking, right? She's choking. And that's cool. So I end up, having some fans from this family because I saved their daughter's life. I was able to do the Heimlich maneuver, and some woman comes to my door and bangs on my door frantically, hands me a child and says, "Save my baby's life." And I'm like, okay. So I did. And then sometime later, someone behind my back starts talking shit about me to these people, and they never have anything to do with me again. And the man was some subconscious developed man, again, way more invested in how things look instead of how things actually are. That kind of delusion, that subconscious developed male delusion, is just so disgusting to me. Does anyone actually believe that we're going to win a war with those men being the majority? I mean, think about it from King Leonidas' point of view. Do you think he's going to win a war? The SD Spartans, they stayed home. They stayed home. He took the UD men who gave up their lives, literally gave up their lives and their families and everything for the sake of their nation. And they all died. They were all slaughtered in horrible ways. They all paid the ultimate price, right? And only then, after that big sacrifice, would the other Spartans actually dare to move. Wow. Shame on them. Shame on those Spartans. Shame on those SD men and their groupthink. Shame on them for being ultimately invested into playing it safe Like, sometimes these guys will play it so safe they'll resign themselves to their own fate, right? A fate that they believe that that's a foregone conclusion. Shouldn't they have masculine perception? Shouldn't they be looking at every angle and every possibility? Shouldn't they be doing that? Huh? But they're not doing that. Because oftentimes they're lazy. They gotta come home from work, crack open a beer, sit down in front of the television. They come home from school, gotta play their video games. These are loser men. Cowards, all of them. Losers. Disgusting. These are the men who marry the single moms. And then they, like a bunch of butt sniffers will high-five each other. Oh, you sure saved that single mom. Even though statistically, the child is going to suffer at the hands of the SD man, the weak man. Do you think UD men get with other men's mothers of their children? No. Single moms, they don't get UD men. UD men don't do that. The point is that, like, statistically, in general, UD men are just more masculine than SD men. And finding an actual masculine SD man is actually pretty rare. They're extremely rare. They're even rarer than a UD man. And they have all the benefits of society behind them. Because they're the strong, silent type. Let me tell you something about the strong, silent type. 80% of the time, they're just a coward. They're just a paper tiger. They're just going to fold. They're just going to bend over. They're just a paper tiger. They don't mean much. They're not going to amount to much. My dad, he, in my opinion, treated me like I wasn't going to amount to much because I wasn't going to the big schools. I wasn't getting these big credentials. I didn't earn my doctorate like he did, right? He introduces himself as doctor in his name. He literally introduces himself that way to people. He even has it added to his credit card. Like, his credit complex and being able to take credit for things is so important to him. I get it. My covetous complex is really important to me too. I get it. And that's what floats his boat. That's what makes us happy. That's fine. I'm not going to get in the way of what makes my father happy. That's cool. But he needs to stay out of my way in terms of what makes me happy. He needs to let me be who I am. It's one of the reasons why we don't have anything to do with each other, and it's for the best. It's for the best. Still miss the guy, though. Highly doubt if he misses me, though. I don't think so. But yeah, you can't rely on SD male judgment. I mean, how pathetic do you have to be? How pathetic do you have to be when I have to go to your woman and get her to nag you before you take action because you care way more about playing Red Dead Redemption than you care about actually taking action that is meaningful and helpful to the community? When are you going to fucking do that? It's so funny, how my family claims I spent a huge sum of money all on World of Warcraft, which it's hard to do on a $15 a month subscription, just saying. And I didn't even buy gold or nothing. I didn't do any of that. They're trying to make that claim, it's okay, yeah, I mean, maybe in those days, being around you folks, I have to implode and, because I have to implode, I have to self-soothe. That's the thing about imploders. Imploders have to self-soothe. Why do you think I have this podcast? Why do you think I have this YouTube channel? It's like my therapist. Because I get to vent and explode about literally anything and everything going on in life. And how important that is, right? Thanks to this subconscious, developed, male, creating society. And now they're the majority. Right? And because of that, we're going to lose the war. And the herd's going to get hella thinned. UD men are statistically more likely to survive. UD men are statistically more likely to be there for their children and be really invested in their children. SD men, taking on the single moms and not really treating her children very well. It's very common, These SD men who basically don't think for themselves and outsource their judgment to other people. That's a problem too. Gross. It's gross. And we want to claim that these men are the pinnacle of society? I don't think so. They're not the pinnacle of society at all. Maybe back in the day when war was so common, the warriors, the UD men are so common that they weren't really that special, but they kept society going, they kept society safe. And then those subconscious developed artisanal men, maybe those artisan men, they were praised because they were hella rare. Maybe that's how it was. They like the finer things, right? I had a subconscious developed man who I've known for years recently tell me how much he likes the finer things. And I'm like, okay. Have you been homeless? Ever? Do you know what to do? Can you take care of yourself when you have everything taken away from you? See what I'm saying, folks? But hey, we're just mentally invested in what looks. We want to keep our fake heaven, right? That's the problem with subconscious developed men. So, anyway, folks, thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.